In this video, I wanted to walk through a basic implementation of Remote Desktop. Now, if you're not familiar with Remote Desktop, there's a couple ways you can do this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Windows key and the R to bring up the command prompt, which is going to be this guy. So the reason why you see nothing but my desktop here is because of the fact that I want to focus solely on um, RDP. Now, here you can type in the command of Notepad and it will launch Notepad, right? So like literally it'll bring up Notepad and voila, you get Notepad, right? Well, we're going to bring back over command prompt. We're going to type in MSTSC. Okay, by typing that's the Microsoft Services Terminal Services Controller, or whatever MSTSC stands for. Basically RDP. If you don't already know how to find it. Well, in this case here I have RDP pulled up, and I have quite a few IP addresses that I can connect to. Um, and so they're all in the same block of the 10255, which is my local network. So I'm going to go ahead and click on connect, and you'll see this little this guy will try to connect out to wherever it's got to go. And actually, that remote desktop connection is I'm not sure if that's even functioning. Let's take a look. Wrong box. Yep, that's what happens when you don't have it set up correctly. 49. That's who I'm trying to connect to. Sorry, not 16. We're going to go 49 and hit connect. And there we have it. So now we're going to type in our password. And we're going to say, okay, when you first log in, you're going to get this little pop-up. This little pop-up is going to be what you want to, you can basically either click on do not ask me again for connections to this computer. You can click on view certificate, and if you do that, you're going to get the certificate information. Click on install certificate, and then just click next, next, and finish. And then you're going to get this little import was successful. Click OK, and click on yes. And then on the screen, it will launch, and you'll get that computer. So um, we're good there. So now I've remote desktoped into this computer. Everything is good to go, right? And so that's how you would go about doing that. Now, if you, for instance, you want to save resources, let's say you're on a slow connection or something like that, we're going to go ahead and close this guy out. If this thing disappears on you, give it a second for it to do that. You can actually just go back up to the top middle, click on this little guy right here, and it's going to pin the connection bar. So now it's not going to go anywhere. It'll always be there. So now you can move this back and forth. You can sit there and go like that, and then it'll do that. I'm going to go ahead and click close. Now I'm going to bring up RDP again. Oh, sorry. Where did that go? Close the magnifier. I clicked on the magnifier, not the RDP section. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that guy back up. RDP. Slide this guy over. I'm going to click on this guy here. Click on the show options here. Then you're going to have a bunch of options here. You can go over here to display, which means I want to go large, full screen, and use all of my monitors for this remote session. That means if you have more than two, it's going to stretch it across. I wouldn't recommend doing that. You have local resources. Well, by default, what do you want to have come across? Configure set remote audio settings so you can actually have play on this computer, do not record. So what you can do um, is you can go in here and have the playback play through the remote desktop session. So literally, you could watch a video over the remote desktop session, which is kind of cool. When it comes to full screen, you can apply Windows key combinations. Yeah, so you can use the Windows key if you want to be able to bring local resources to there. So choose devices and resources that you want to use in your remote session. So clipboard and printers, you can print remotely. Experience, um, detect a connection automatically. So basically what you want to do is right now I'm on a LAN speed right here. If you want to go to say for instance low speed or something like this modem where it's not going to allow remote desktop. So I can go back to the LAN speed and I can say I don't want to see the remote desktop. I don't want to have font smoothing, desktop composition. So I can disable all this. These are things that are going to be disabled when you go across. So for instance, if I don't want to have all this stuff going on, and I click on advanced, this is going to be, server authentication and then connect from anywhere type settings. So I'm going to go ahead and back to general, and I'm going to click on connect. Now, the cool thing here is you can save the connection settings. So you can have an RDP an icon sitting here on your desktop to where you just double click on it, it automatically brings up the remote desktop session for you. So you can go ahead and save as, rename it if you'd like. I'm just going to go ahead and click on connect. I'm going to type in the password. And here, if you were to do that, you say remember my credentials and click OK and click yes. It's not going to ask me for the password ever again. But notice what's missing from the background. Exactly. The desktop background is missing. So I'm going to go ahead and close this guy out. But I'm also going to do this, close this guy out. Now the RDP session goes away. I click back on RDP, bring this guy back over. And then, for instance, if I wanted to go to show options again, I can go here and say save as, and I can go in here and save it however I want to. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in that regard. I'm going to go ahead and click connect one more time. I'm going to click yes. It doesn't ask me for the password, but it allows me to log in. I can click on here and then come over here and I'm good to go. So that's really RDP. Now, for those of you that are remote on your remote desktop connections, if you click on the start button, you're not going to have the option of doing the shutdown. You're going to disconnect and lock. So for those of you that are interested in knowing how to reboot a computer remotely or shut it down remotely, you can't do that through a remote desktop. You can do it through TeamViewer, you can do it through WebEx, things like that. But in case you don't know how to do this, if you were to click on the start menu and go command prompt and bring this guy up, click in here and type in shutdown / mark, and you have a couple options here. So I'm going to go ahead and expand these guys out. Let's scroll back up to the top. If you do shutdown space / R, it's going to shut down and restart the computer. Okay, go ahead and mark this right here. This R is going to shut down and restart the computer. If you do S, which is right above it, it's going to shut down the computer. Okay, so now if I type in shutdown R, it says it's going to tell the computer to reboot, shut down the computer, and reboot. It usually takes about a minute, so it's got to do a graceful shutdown. And you can go ahead and reboot the computer. That's going to be one way to do that. So in case you weren't sure how to do that, if you want to shut down the computer completely, you can do that. Just make sure that I usually don't do this if I'm remote. I usually just do a reboot and give it a couple minutes, and I'm able to remote desktop back to it. But in case you have a remote, if you're not able to power back on, I wouldn't recommend you go in here and power it down if you don't have a way to reboot it. If it's a virtual machine, in my case, I can shut it down and I can go back into the vSphere and bring it back up. But just in case you were curious, and that's one way to do that. It's actually the only way I know how to do that, other than I'm sure there's a PowerShell commandlet you can use, but that's what I've got. So I hope that this has been informative for you, and I would like to thank you for viewing.